Welcome to Impact. I'm Philip Morris, your interviewer and CEO of Proctors. Our guest today is Chris Marblo, who is the president of the Arts Center of the Capital Region. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
And this is your return to the Capital Region, right?
Yes, I was a resident from the age of 14 to 36, and then my career took me away, most recently New York City for 9 years, and now I'm back.
So what compelled you? What about the Arts Center in the Capital Region, the Arts Center of the Capital Region and the Capital Region brought you back?
Well, I had worked in education for 27 years and started out as an English teacher and then became an administrator, got into the private school end of it, became a head of school, loved it, turned 50 and realized I wanted to shake things up a bit. So I decided to give notice without another job lined up and thought about working in a nonprofit and specifically desired to work in the arts. And this job opened up, it was back home, and it just seemed like a natural thing, and it worked out.
So what about the arts was compelling to you?
Well, I was a musician. I was a music major early on in college, and still play.
What do you play?
Guitar, keyboards. Was in a band in college, wrote music, and still write music, kind of ambient electronic work that I release under the name of Margin Stars. So my interest in the arts preceded my interest in education, really.
So we need you to play someplace. Have you considered, do you have a band really to play?
Well, I don't have any bandmates anymore, but I would love to do something fun, just do cover songs or something. I need to find a bassist and a drummer and a singer.
Well, we'll find you a venue for it.
Good.
So we'll figure out a way for you to do that. I play very badly. I'm a singer. So my background's in music too, but
we can do some blues, perhaps.
As a vocalist. Well, for our Christmas party, the Proctors Christmas party, we considered pulling a quartet together to do some songs, but it just didn't emerge.
Well, one of the things we did at my last school is I insisted on forming a faculty band, and we called ourselves the Fackletones, and we'd play once a year at the holiday assembly, and it was just a blast.
Well, that's great.
Yeah,
that's really great.
It was fun.
What have you noticed about education? Well, I mean, so you were in education for
27
years.
So
you've seen a lot of change there. That's a powerfully compelling arena in America.
Very interesting, and when you combine independent schools and New York City and the pressures and the price tags, it's a very rich stew. But we're living through tumultuous times, and many of the old models are no longer suitable to what students really need. And the challenge for any educational leader is to figure out what comes next. So I've been lucky to work in schools that were interested in figuring that out with me. And one of the things I pushed hard at my last school was the virtue of creative thinking. The idea that you're not just born creative, you can learn how to think creatively, and that is now a core skill, applicable in many different areas, and needs to be taught explicitly. And it's actually something that we're going to be moving into at the Art Center, to teach creative thinking.
I remember years ago the series of books that I adored, Whack on the Side of the Head.
I don't know those, no.
Yeah, they were just they were meant to sort of shake people up, you know, talking about turning an idea upside down, how to take an idea and turn it inside out in order to see it from other perspectives. And it's a fabulous, fabulous book on creativity, and I sort of see its edginess at the time, 30 years ago, becoming more critical to where we are now.
Yeah, there are more and more people identifying creativity as a core skill, and I was very much influenced by this guy named Sir Ken Robinson, who was knighted for his work in the UK in bringing creativity and creative thinking to schools over there. And he gave a 20-minute TED talk at the TED conference, and if you Google Sir Ken Robinson, you will see this talk, and it's about how schools kill creativity. And I think it's the most viewed TED talk ever. And we brought him to our school.
Roses are red, right? The Harry Chapin song?
Yeah.
And blue skies are blue. There's no other color.
Right. Well, he's a powerful figure. We brought him to our school, and he was able to really push the agenda forward. But I would urge anyone who has an interest in this topic to just Google Sir Ken Robinson, and you'll be delighted with what you see and hear.
So at the school that you came from, how did you implement this?
Well, you know, change in school is hard, and you have to really start slow and expect that faculty will be questioning and somewhat resistant. So we started with the idea and slowly built up support for it. And we had to convince the trustees, the faculty, the parents. And once people got exposed to the idea, they started to see its importance, and then it was a matter of creating curriculum, and that was the next big wave of work. So when I left, the school decided to make some of this permanent by creating an innovation lab, a place to kind of go and do this. And in the future, of course, you want to make sure this is done in every single classroom. But right now, we're kind of starting with a space, or they're starting with a space and bringing it out from the circle that way. There are some interesting schools doing more of this, but not many. There still are very, very few schools pushing this forward, and it's a shame. It needs to be. So I think the Art Center can step into some of that in this region, and we'll be doing that aggressively.
So how do you imagine that being manifest in the Art Center? Because the Art Center plays a critical role. I mean, it's sort of the arts teaching, maybe not the exclusive exhibition facility, but still a critical one.
I think it can manifest in a number of ways. One way that it's manifesting in other places is as design thinking. So you bring people together and you give them a problem to solve, and oftentimes it's a design problem. We want to broaden that a bit and not just focus on design, but say, okay, we're going to bring middle and high school students together with some great faculty, and here's a problem. And over the course of 2 weeks, you'll solve it, and you'll prototype, and you'll show your work, and you'll fail. But at the end of it, you'll have some solution that's practical to the problem that we're exploring. And those processes are linked to core skills: analysis, creativity, divergence, failure, teamwork, that are really important for students to just learn. And we can bring this to middle high school students, and you can also bring it to businesses that want to foster more of this among their employees.
Now, the Art Center at this point is largely a program of teaching?
Yes.
So
largely.
Just talk about it, classes, numbers. Just, not that numbers matter, but to give context.
In any given year, we'll have about 30,000 people come through the Art Center. Many of those people are taking classes. Many of them are visiting the galleries. We have 4 galleries. Some of them are coming to our Black Box Theater to see performances. So it's a multifaceted, broad-based approach to art and creativity. And a wonderful institution that just celebrated its 50th anniversary this past year, 2012. So we've been around for 50 years.
Yeah, one of the early Arts Council things in the country, right?
I don't know if it's in the country, but certainly, one of the early ones in this region.
Yeah, I would even think in the country, because I think the first was 63 or 64.
Yeah, and the Art Center was founded in 63, 62.
Yeah, so I think it's early on if you wanted to connect to that history.
Yep. And certainly that role as an arts council is something that the Art Center backed away from over the years, and we want to fill that in a bit more. We want to provide a service to local artists, and to that end we're going to be debuting 2 new artist awards at our gala this year in May. We're going to be giving cash awards to a rising star in the visual arts field and an established artist, and hoping to shine a light on the talent that we have in this area.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That's a great idea. What are your biggest challenges in this new role?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is for a 50-year-old organization, we're still a bit under the radar. When I was taking this job, I was talking to friends that I've had since college. I went to college up here, and they're in the arts, and they live in Albany, and they never heard of the Art Center. So that just can't be. If people are engaged in the arts, they at least need to know that we exist. So we need to do a lot of work to get our name out there, and part of that is just old-fashioned marketing. But part of it is making sure that the programming is compelling enough to be noticed, and that's a big part of what we're doing as well. We think the programming that we offer is solid. People that take our classes tend to like it. But we want to expand it. We want to move into some other areas like creative thinking. And when we do that, I think our presence will be expanded as well, and good things will come of that.
Well, one of the things I think was the Art Center's ambition, and I would think, having lived here 11 years, you must feel successful at it, was to be core to revitalizing Troy.
Right. Well, that was one of the big questions I had when I moved up here. We're housed in Troy, so our future is intimately tied to the future of that city. And I've got to be honest, my first month I was looking around and walking around, and I would go from one block and be exhilarated, and the next block feel depressed. And I went on a little listening tour. I just wanted to talk to folks about the Art Center and about Troy, and I heard repeated sentiments about Troy having a lot of potential. The architecture is beautiful. It's a walkable city. It's on the river, accessible, but it doesn't seem to ever realize that potential. I honestly think that's starting to shift now. We're starting to see some development that's very exciting for Troy. Someone was describing Troy as the Brooklyn of the capital region. If we could own that identity, that would be great. I think we can. I think there are a lot of younger artists choosing to live in the city. And I think that's the future for this city. And it's got a lot of potential, but it needs a lot of shoring up. Well, there's a lot of vacant buildings, and people from Albany don't want to come to Troy, and people from Schenectady don't want to come to Troy. And it's a matter of breaking down some of those perceptions about place and distance, I think.
Yeah, well, people are bored sometimes by it, but the more we think about this, the more I think about it, the more true I think it is. We're a suburb surrounded by cities, and when we think like that, you suddenly go, wait a minute. You know, if you're in the majority population area, which is Clifton Park, Niskayuna, Delmar Colony, not Delmar Colony, that central suburb, all three of these cities are yours.
Sure. Well, the challenges that Troy faces are the same challenges that Albany faces and Schenectady faces and hundreds of cities along the East Coast and up to the Midwest face. Troy was once a booming city doing something, and now that industry is gone, and what's next? The good news is that a lot of the urban revival of the 70s that was so awful bypassed Troy.
Yeah.
So a lot of the building stock is preserved.
Fabulous town.
Yeah.
Just
so
fabulous.
there is potential, and I think the scale is just really welcoming. It's a small city, and that's important. Scale is important.
Do you have a plan at this point for your upper stories? Because I know their vacancy has been a source of anguish.
Yeah, so we own 5 buildings in Troy, 66,000 square feet. We utilize about 32,000 square feet of that. So the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors of our 5 buildings are undeveloped. And the Art Center over the years has tried to think of ways to develop that space and got close to doing something relative to artist housing, but at the last minute funding fell apart. So yes, we are looking at what can we do? Do we consolidate that space and sell off a building? Do we partner with someone else to develop the upper floors? Do we offer it up for musicians for rehearsal space and artists for studio space? You know, it all comes down to money. What's going to generate revenue, and what's going to fund the redevelopment of the space, because it's going to be a big ticket. And public funding, that's dried up. Private funding, it's cautious. So it's a tough climate, but you know, it's a front burner issue. It's not a back burner issue for us. So we're trying to think creatively about it.
Yeah, well, as Troy, like any city, but as redevelopment has gone from the first floors up, and there's a lot of housing in downtown Troy, the opportunity to look up, the demand to look up grows. So you're more than happy with the first 2 floors for a long time, but now everyone around you is moving up and thinking about the floors above.
Sure. If there really is an upward spiral happening in Troy, and I think there is, then over time, within a couple of years, I think that space will become desirable to more people, and that will be only good news for us.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, Chris, this has been fabulous. I look forward to working with you over the next decade or whatever, and good luck with the Art Center.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're back. This is Chris Marblo, who is joining us on Impact. I'm Philip Morris. Thank you very much. Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.